Marjorie Taylor Greene appeared on InfoWars with Alex Jones, which you know is going to be a bad combination. And I have a really interesting clip to play for you here where she says something that indicates she gets that things aren't looking as good for Trump as once was claimed by the likes of herself or MAGA at large. And what I mean is, leading up to this point in time, there was this overly confident tone among Trump world that he is gonna beat Biden so easily and he's just waiting out the clock, and that's why we'll just delay these trials, and then he's gonna win, he'll be fine, everything will be great, and then he'll get to work on his authoritarian project. And now you're seeing a little bit of a freak out going on. And Marjorie Taylor Greene says something in this moment that is not what Donald Trump wants to hear if he's listening to this edition of InfoWars. And so I'll play it for you, and then I have more to look at as well.
Here's the biggest problem, Alex. Most of my Republican colleagues, everybody in Washington, D.C., all of the political consulting class, they're angry at me. They're saying, oh, we need to wait till after Trump wins the election. Oh, we're going to fix all this stuff next Congress. Alex, I'm not so sure that Trump is going to be able to win the election. This is April. I know the polling looks good, but November's a long ways away.
I'm going to really quickly pause your viewing of this video to ask you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just click that subscribe button, plus the like button as well, and the alert bell so you get notifications. Back to it.
And we already went through a stolen election that in many of these states never changed their election laws. There's also this. They are trying to lock President Trump up. They want to put him in jail for the rest of his life, and they mean it. They are not backing down. So there's no guarantee we're going to win this election.
Yeah, so obviously because she's Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's going to frame this as, oh, because they're gonna steal it, or because they're gonna lock him up unfairly. And we have gone through for the entire time that I've had this show why the stolen election claims are absolutely ridiculous. And then we've been spending lots of time since Trump was indicted explaining why the claims of this being unfair prosecution are baseless. But that is her way of saying she just thinks politically things are getting much tougher. And that's her way of saying that maybe this isn't as in the bag as they were previously acting like. And she would never admit this, but Trump should be terrified of the fact that the economy is doing much better, that Joe Biden has overseen this pretty impressive economic recovery after the shambles of a situation that was left for him by Donald Trump. They won't admit this, but people will start to notice the fact that crime has plummeted under Joe Biden. People are starting to feel the investments in their communities through the infrastructure law and these other huge legislative victories that Biden has overseen. People will start to notice the fact that their student loans are being forgiven, etc. And those factors, as I've been saying for a real long time, and a lot of people have been pointing this out, are sort of something that gets felt on a delay, where it happens, a policy is implemented, or an economic metric is shown to be taking place, but it takes a second for people to actually feel that. And obviously, just by seeing the fact that unemployment's low, or seeing the fact that wages are increasing, or whatever it might be, that's not going to impact you until that's felt in your life. And so now that those ripples are actually impacting people where it matters, I do think that it's contributing to why Biden is seeing a bump in the polls that we'll get to in a second. And also, I've also been really hopeful about the reality that as Biden actually goes full in on campaigning, and he's not just quietly governing, but actually out there campaigning, people will be hearing more about his policy record, hearing his critiques of Donald Trump, to say the least. And the same for Trump, where they'll be hearing more from him as people actually start to engage and realize this election's coming up. And those factors only serve to benefit Joe Biden, where as people engage more, they're reminded of the deranged mess that Donald Trump is, and no longer is he this, which I know avid political viewers won't get this, but a lot of people, he's become sort of an abstract thought. And sort of before the pandemic, things were maybe going all right. And then there's this fairy tale of Trump that's very much detached from his actual record, and people are associating more with that. But as Trump reminds them of the real Trump, then he will be harmed politically. And as Joe Biden reminds people now that he's actually out there on the campaign trail of what the governance has actually been that he's overseen and what he could do in a second term, especially with the Democratic majority in the House and Senate, I think that's going to be very beneficial politically. And so I say all that, and I'll play another clip here from a different interview of Marjorie Taylor Greene in a second, but I say that because it's hopeful, real, and also definitely what Marjorie Taylor Greene is picking up on. She's realizing one by one, the issues they were hoping on running on are falling apart. The economy, it's getting harder for them to run on that, given the successful recovery Biden has overseen. They try to blame him for things that the pandemic caused, but as he solves those issues, and obviously not just Biden, but everyone doing the hard work to make that happen, it's not as effective to attack him on that. Crime, as we've been talking about, because it's plummeting, that's getting harder to attack Biden on, even though they tried their very best, like I said, to blame him for the surge in crime that started under Donald Trump because of the pandemic and Trump's mishandling of it. And then even the border, while that still is politically benefiting them for some reason, the facts are showing that even that isn't something they should be justified in attacking Biden over, given that the Marjorie Taylor Greenes of Congress are the ones obstructing this bipartisan border deal that's endorsed by the Border Patrol Union. And so as these different issues fall apart, they're getting more desperate. They're seeing the damage that a potential conviction could lead to politically, and she's getting ready to warn the MAGA audience, listen, this might not be as good as you think it's going to be, and thus we got to do the crazy MAGA stuff now while we still have the power, at least in the House of Representatives. Here is more from Marjorie Taylor Greene.
This is different. They're angry on a whole nother level. And here's what really worries me. They're done with the Republican Party. They are absolutely done with Republican leadership like Mike Johnson, who totally sold us out to the Democrats, joined the Uniparty faster than anyone we've ever seen in history, and literally made a night and day change in a matter of months. Betrayed everyone, betrayed the entire Republican Party, betrayed Republican voters, betrayed the Republican conference. And voters are so angry this time, but I'm really worried. I am really worried. They're so angry they're not going to give us the majority back in 2025.
So not only is she dropping the bomb on Trump of you're not necessarily going to win this thing, and that the future for Trump might be prison, not the presidency, but she's also saying and almost giving permission to MAGA voters of maybe you're so upset with Mike Johnson that you're not going to go out and vote for Republicans. And that is an absolutely beautiful thing for her to be saying. And again, even though she's just providing what you would call prediction there, or thinking it's concerning that maybe voters will be so upset with Mike Johnson and Republican leadership that they'll stay home. But it sounds a little bit like, and that would be justified. And we saw what the effect, or we speculate that the effect of MAGA voters being not motivated after the 2020 election to vote for the Senate race in Georgia because they just thought that the Trump election was stolen, and so they didn't think it was worth it to go out and vote for the Republican Senate candidates in Georgia. That could have contributed to those two Democratic victories that were surprising and incredible. And a similar thing could be happening here, where this anger within the party could suppress MAGA vote and hurt the Republican Party, which would be absolutely beautiful. Now, on the polling, here is something Fox News showed, a 5-way ballot according to NBC News. Biden at 39%, Trump at 37%, Kennedy at 13%, Stein at 3%, West at 2%. And I don't want to get into a whole rant, but I do just want to say the three there, 13, 3, and 2, if they love their country and love their democracy, they should be dropping out and endorsing Joe Biden. But then I'll jump over here to the Hill. President Biden is narrowly leading former President Trump in a new national poll of voters, with his lead growing slightly when narrowing in on those who said they definitely plan to vote in November. A Marist PBS NewsHour poll published Monday found Biden leading Trump 51% to 48% among registered voters, which is an uptick from the last one at 50 to 48. But then I've been referring to, but haven't given you a visual representation of this, I've been referring to the bump of Biden that he's experienced sort of since the State of the Union and now that his campaign's actually fully underway. And I keep wording it that way because if you are keeping up with the way that Biden's been conducting himself, there's a big difference between quietly govern Biden and campaign brag about successes Biden and lay out a plan for the future Biden. And right now we've seen the shift finally, and it's making a difference. Look at this. If you see here a low point around February 2nd, then since February 2nd, we've just seen a huge surge for Biden. And now essentially in the average of polls, this is 670 polls being combined here and getting the average. You have essentially a neck and neck race now where Biden was trailing significantly and now he's shooting up. Now, what's the takeaway? Woohoo, pop the champagne. No, obviously not. And especially now that we have our nominees, there's not a lot other than just checking in on how things are going. There's not a lot that we can gain in terms of insight from the polls, meaning our activity shouldn't be changed by whatever the polls do. If all of a sudden Biden's trailing, we have the same goal. If Biden's leading Trump by a gazillion points, same goal. Same amount of work needs to go in to make sure that Donald Trump is defeated. And so I think obsessing over the horse race too much can get counterproductive, and people can take the wrong lessons from it. Oh, all hope is lost, or no, we're doing so great, we can sort of kick back and relax. And neither of those are the correct answer. No matter what the polls look like right before the election, we're going to want to have done everything we can to protect our democracy and protect the rights of people and enable further policy successes. And so the polls shouldn't impact that. But I will say I am going to be tooting my own horn if the people who were so pessimistic about this election end up being wrong. I'm just going to be honest, okay? And then they can toot their horns at me if it goes the other way. I am putting that line in the sand that if we end up prevailing politically, there have been some people irritating me who have been since early on really, really pessimistic and saying that there's zero chance Biden could possibly win against Donald Trump. And if that doesn't end up being the case, I will be a little petty, okay? I'm just warning you all. It's been said. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments.